Updating our top 10 quarterback rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft. Cam Ward stays at number 1. Shedeur Sanders climbs back up and tied the top 3. But who are the other movers and shakers amongst our list? We're going to discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated over here at Locked On NFL Draft. DP, college football, week 4. Is in the books, and we're about to give you a recap, right? We're going with our classic Monday morning segment. We're doing our updated QB rankings, and yes, we have a shakeup at the top that we have to talk about, and then we're going to get into our segment, Money Makers and Bag Fumblers. Which guys made themselves some money with the performances? Which guys lost some money? And then we're going to get our regular weekly appearances from Coach DP, Coach K. We hopping in the locker room, and we giving out game balls with DP. Let's get this thing going, man.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Guys, if you're new here, we're about to go through our top 10 quarterbacks after week 4 for the 2025 NFL Draft Class. At number 1, Cam Ward from Miami. At number 2, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. At number 3, Quinn Ewers from Texas. At number 4, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. At number 5, Jalen Milroe from Alabama. At number 6, Carson Beck out of Georgia. At number 7, Drew Aller from Penn State. At number 8, Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. At number 9, Miller Moss from USC. And at number 10, a new face, Curtis Rorick from Indiana. Keith, we talked about Cam Ward a couple times last week, and he consistently has held the spot for 2 weeks in a row at number 1. He's just, to me, he's playing like a guy you want to take first overall right now. Like, not looking ahead at what we'll see from ACC play this past weekend was, and we talked about it, USF was going to be the best competition, the biggest test for that team. And at one point, I think they had a lead, maybe in like the third quarter.
Yeah, I think it was
like
tight.
They had a lead. And, you know, he was 24. He ended up with like 24 of 34, like 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. And just watching him, you just watching Cam Ward, you see a guy, 404 yards, 3 touchdowns, 71% completion percentage. He had 1 interception that wasn't his fault. It literally went through the hands of the receiver and went right to the DB. He's playing with a level of confidence, a swag. He's how to put this? I don't want, if he's on my team, I love him. If I gotta face this dude, Keith, I absolutely hate his guts, because like he's out there doing things. Like, he had a scramble and he's getting ready to go out of bounds, and he's like taunting the closing defender.
I seen it. Yeah, I seen
and then the defender pushes him. He flops, gets the call. I'm like, okay, that's kind of veteran-esque. I'll give you that. But then, like, it's just like the things there was one point, there was at the goal line, and he's literally telling the defense, we're running the ball right here.
Yeah,
and like he told them twice. And I was just like, nah, I ain't no way they're about to do this. And then he run the right with Damian Martinez right up the A gap, and it was a touchdown. And it's like just the confidence, the way he moves in the pocket. Some people call it arrogant. It's just he's in control. And the game is slowed down for him. And if they get that run game going in Miami, it's going to be kind of scary, Keith. But Shedeur Sanders, man, like, I don't know, Keith. Like, I know people feel the way they feel about him, but you can't deny his greatness as a quarterback, man.
Yeah, no, and part of it is that the reason why you may not care for him as a quarterback or a person, or like just as a fan, right? If that's your opinion, like, hey, I don't really care for him because of the antics and where they put themselves in certain positions and what's being said, is part of the reason why you should think about embracing him, right? Is because how many of these quarterbacks we see go through the process of what's the best way, that letting pressure cook them, right? They put in the pressure cooker and then they mentally spiral. This is a guy who's had the kitchen sink and everything else thrown at him, and sometimes he's thrown the kitchen sink to himself, right? Some of those wounds are self-inflicted, but he still responded and played high-level football. And I think that's kind of where I'm falling with Shedeur, right? Is that you figure out what's in between and what's in the middle, right? And what you like, don't like, as far as what he does in the media and things like that. But then what is the talent, right? And then you have to look at it from that perspective when you watch him.
No, you're right. And I think, like I said, at the end of the day, and I tweeted this out, I hate the term pro ready, but like when you watch, he's constantly under pressure. His right guard gave up 7 pressures Saturday night. Like, I think he played some right tackle during the game too. I think they shuffled him around a little bit at one point. And he just was a turnstile. They like Baylor's D-line and the pressure packages, getting free runners. There was one point where they sent the inside backer on the blitz up the A gap. The center slid to the right, the running back slid to the right, and basically nobody communicated right. And the linebacker got a free run at your quarterback. And I'm just like, and then like the angles, the play, which I guess I'll spoil it. My game ball. He's one of the guys I'm giving my game ball to. Shedeur Sanders. The Hail Mary, right? You're under pressure. You're rolling. Which
one?
Right.
The first one or the second one?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Both. Like it's just you don't expect a guy. And same thing with Cam Ward. I'm watching Shedeur and he's just calm. No matter how much pressure he's under, how many times he's getting hit, he's standing in the pocket. You know how we criticize Will Levis for not moving around in the pocket and took hits? But it's like Will Levis is a really good athlete. And it's like, bro, like you're 6'4", 230. Like you should just use your legs more, right? But instead, Will will be just like, he'll be like stone-footed. Where I look at Shedeur is like Shedeur knows I have to take this hit to get this pass off on 3rd and 10, or we're going back to the bench. And my defense, who we all know isn't the greatest, is going to be put back in a compromising situation, Keith. But I want to go a little bit. Let's have a conversation real quick about Jackson Dart, because I know some Ole Miss fans will be like, okay, y'all had him like top 4, and then you dropped him down. Keith, Jackson Dart is tough for me, man. Because I look at all these quarterbacks. Keith, Cam Ward, I think USF tested him for most of that game. Shedeur Sanders, he's tested every freaking week. Quinn Ewers against Michigan. Garrett Nussmeier, against South Carolina, against LSU. Carson Beck against Clemson, right? Drew Aller, his coming into the season was going to be a test for him. Miller Moss has been more tested than Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart has played multiple cupcake teams, and he hasn't been tested yet. This team hasn't been tested yet.
Yeah, no, I think the easy way to say this, right, is that even when we've been looking at the college football slates, it's like, this is kind of a doozy, right? And it's because this might be the slowest, and I don't know if it has to do with conference alignment or whatever, but I feel like the slowest get to the good games, right?
Yeah,
part of the season that we've had in a while. Like we sitting at week 4, and teams are still playing, group of 5 schools. Like we should be deep into the, like, not deep, but you should be into conference play, right? We should be getting those conference plays and not just 1 or 2 or 3 matchups throughout a 30-game slate. It should be half of them, right? It should be conference games at this point. So that way, as talent evaluators, we can start to get those good, get those good resume games and those good looks. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing. And coming up next, we're going to talk about the money makers and bag fumblers, those guys that made themselves some money and those guys that fumbled the bag. Coming up next.
Football is finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a single play. My best piece of advice on game day for my fellow football fans is be organized, have a plan, and know what you are going to eat before you send or ask your friends and family members to come over. Guys, have the spread set, whether you cooked it all or you had it all ordered and delivered. DoorDash can help you with either. It does not even matter. But that's how you define game day greatness, by being organized and planning things out. Again, DoorDash can help you. Just use the promo code LOCKFALL for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 or older to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol only available in select markets. Money makers and bag fumblers, aka stock up, stock down. Keith, I gotta go to Michigan. Big win. I actually picked them to lose that game because I didn't think their offense was going to give them enough in the passing game. Spoiler alert, it didn't, but they still won the game. I think they only threw for 32 yards in the entire game. But the defense, being able to harass Miller Moss, Josiah Stewart, Keith, the edge rusher, like this young man was a terror off the edge for that USC offensive line. And when you the first step quickness, like the bend, because he's listed at like 6'1", 245. So he's not a tall guy, right? Similar to Jalen Walker. Like I'm telling you right now, guys, you're just going to have to deal with it with these kind of shorter edge rushers, right? But Josiah Stewart, Keith, on the season, 4 sacks, 4 QB hits, 7 pressures. He has a forced fumble. And in this game, he had 2 sacks, 3 QB hits, 3 pressures, 3 tackles, and the forced fumble came in this game. Right. And you talk about a game where your defense needs to limit
make plays. Yeah, it's not even about DP for Michigan sustaining or holding or things like that. No, y'all have to make plays, turnovers, points, things like that. It has to be
you got to keep, and they did a good job. You had to keep USC under 30 points, under 35 points, right? You couldn't let them try and run, if they got into the 30s and put that pressure on your team late to have to throw, and you're down 7 to 8 points, it puts you in a compromising position. But Josiah Stewart was an absolute animal. And we talked about Jalen Walker, Josiah Stewart, Princely's been good. Nick Skyerton has gotten in the backfield and made sacks. I think James Pierce's got his first sack. The top guys in this edge rush class has been a little underwhelming, while that second tier guys, or those guys that people didn't consider as true first rounders, they're the ones actually shining right now.
Yeah, those are the production guys. DP, I'm gonna go with this guy for my moneymaker, right? And that's Michigan's running back, and that's Khalil Mullings. I wrote about him over at the Draft Network, like just key guys to keep your eyes on, right? And I paid attention to the Arkansas State game and how carries were split up. And it wasn't about the carries, because I think Donovan Edwards and him had very similar carries when they played Arkansas State, right? But it was about the effectiveness and what Michigan needed, right? And you look at Khalil Mullins, this guy is listed at 6'2", 230 pounds. This is a big physical back, right? Somebody that you want to set the tone. He's going to get the offense going, but he's going to get the defense believing like, hey, the offense could put up some points, because if we give them good field position, we can give the ball to this young man right here, and he's going to tote the rock in between the tackles, right? And this guy had a hell of a game, right? 17 rushes, 159 yards, and 2 total touchdowns. We talked about DP, they only threw the ball for 30 times, right? So at some point, you're sitting there, you're like, you know what? We know Michigan's going to run the football, right? And everybody in the building know they was going to run the football. It's very almost similar to Michigan's game against Penn State, right? Where they didn't pass the football the entire second half. They had one of those type of outputs. They probably even threw for less yards in this game, to be honest. I think the Penn State, they threw for more yards in the first half. But just watching Khalil, I see a player, I want to say, as far as somebody that's totally off the radar, you want to say, like, this is not a bad football player. Like, the guy has enough lateral juice. And I think about, make sure I get this right, Hassan Haskins, that came out of Michigan a couple years ago that went to the Titans. I believe he's a little bit bigger, but I also believe he has more juice than Hassan Haskins, right? And Hassan, I can't remember exactly where he was drafted, but this is a draftable prospect. And then, who I started thinking about? Some of those other bigger backs, right? I started thinking about the Raheem Sanders and those guys. And what I'm saying is that, hey, can the Jaquindon Jackson. I was about to say Jaquan Jackson. Jaquindon Jackson, running back from Arkansas. Also, like, hey, can he put his name in the mix of once you start to get to the third, fourth round and you need a big in between the tackles, pounder type running back, he can be one of those football players. And I think he's starting to do that. And I think he's in prime position to get a bulk of carries to be able to put together a nice resume heading into the draft.
No, 100%, Keith, Khalil. It's crazy because he was on this roster last year and they still had Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. And, now to watch him kind of just take that lead role. And he was the key to that team, right? And I'll talk about him, to close the show out. But like big game for him. And I think he's proven, like, listen, I'm the guy. I'm the guy in this running game.
Yep.
And it's just a simple fact of, like you said, like the lateral agility, the juice, the open, the speed and open field. And just to kind of watch him, watching him reminds me of like what we're seeing right now with the Jets with Braylon Allen, where, Breece Hall is quote unquote RB1, but in terms of toting the rock, Braylon Allen has looked like the better running back.
Yeah, and no, that's big because I think what you're starting to see is a shift, DP, and as draft analysts, right, you have to pay attention to that because what is the carry shift going to be? What is we thought that Donovan Edwards, and I wrote about this, was going to kind of be the insert RB1 workload guy, face of the Michigan program, right? And we're starting to see now that 4 weeks in, right, that's kind of shifting to, is Donovan Edwards going to go back to the same role that he had with Blake Corum, right? And Khalil Mullings is the guy we need to be paying attention to when it comes to workload.
I think that's where it's headed, Keith. And honestly, it might not be bad. It's not great for his draft stock in terms of Donovan Edwards, but it'll be good for their offense to start using him more in the passing game as you want to get Alex Orji comfortable into a rhythm. You got a guy that can run routes who's actually shown he can run vertical routes. He can run the Texas, the angle routes. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. Use him like that and give yourself a strong 1-2 punch. You would talk about a strong 1-2 punch in the same conference, in the Big Ten. Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins.
Yep.
Keith, let me
He
tell you something.
Up.
I've been sitting here. Everybody, and don't get me wrong, I love Ashton Genty, love my guy Kyle Monunga, like all that, right? Amarion Hampton. All this was my RB1 coming out of the summer. Off of Summer Scott, I said, listen, the best overall to me skill set of NFL size, speed, agility, pass catching, all that. Everything was Quinshon Judkins. And I was like, I'm excited to see him in an offense like Ohio State's where you're going to have a good offensive line. They're going to give you the rock. Last week, Keith, not last week, in week 2 against Western Michigan, he only had 9 carries. He had 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. He should have had close to 200 because he had an 80 or 90-yard run that was called back on a fluky holding penalty. Against Marshall, 14 carries, 173 yards, 2 more rushing touchdowns. He's got 5 so far on the season. He's averaging almost 9.5 yards per carry right now. He had his longest run this past Saturday was 86 yards, and he's splitting almost evenly between zone and gap. So you talk about a guy that is scheme versatile, conceptually versatile for a run offense. Yes, when you look at Quinshon Judkins, I get it. Ashton Genty has been on a tear, but if Ohio State gave Quinshon the ball right out the gate, he would have been putting up these same type of numbers, man. But I think as you get into Big Ten play, I expect them to lean on him. Will Howard is a talented quarterback, but he hasn't had too many true drop back sets as a passer in this offense. And I think the run game between him and Travion Henderson, I think right now for me, my RB1 has arrived, and he's about to wake everybody up on why he was as hyped as he was.
Yeah, definitely, because they're about to hop into conference play, right? And he's going to need to play full games, which he's probably consistently touched that, 20 carry mark, which, is more volume for him and more production ability. But DP, I'm ready to make.
Whoa.
Okay, well, let me know. I didn't know, because I feel like you got some bag fumblers. I didn't know if you wanted to, kind of jump into the negative part of it. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's highlight it.
Landon Jackson, Keith, edge rusher
Yep.
from Arkansas. I was actually really excited about this young man coming back. He's 6'. He's tall, long arms, powerful. I think he's got like 1 sack on the season. He watching games. It feels like I don't see him on the field a lot and see his impact, especially for a team that's a really competitive team at Arkansas. I'm not sure what's going on. Hopefully, as you're getting into SEC play more, you hope that he takes that step forward. But if I remember correctly, he was a projected like top 100, top 150 pick for the 2024 NFL draft class. He went back to school. His stock might be, I'm not gonna say might be, his stock is trending down, Keith. He's fumbling the bag right now where he might have been better off coming out in 2024.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, right? And we're seeing this with a lot of guys, and this is why we have to be careful when we attach talent to simply production. And I think that's what happened last year, right? The big game against Alabama, and then everybody boosts your draft stock based off of looking at sack numbers, but you always have to look at the process, and the process is more important than a production. That is a draft gem right there for the Locked On NFL Draft.
That's a Coach K's key thought right there.
That's
baby.
a Coach K's key thought right there. But DP, I think now it's time to transition, right? And we're about to jump in. Coach K, Coach DP. We're about to hand out the game ball, and DP already said it. He has 3 guys. 3 guys, so he's probably going to be in a lot of different locker rooms. My guy needs those frequent flyer mileages, right? He needs that. So, DP, let's get into it.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And speaking of bets, guys, you can go ahead and get in on the Super Bowl odds for 2025. Look at it right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. The Detroit Lions are plus 1,200 to win the Super Bowl outright. So you can go ahead and get in on all of the action. Guys, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Again, that's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All of that is on FanDuel.com. So again, if you want this deal, all you got to do is go to FanDuel.com. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Keith, yes, I'm making 3 trips to hand out 3 different game balls of the week. Number 1, Shedeur Sanders, 61% completion, 341 passing yards, 3 total touchdowns, 2 in the air, 1 on the ground. Pressured 16 times, sacked, I think 8 times in this game, just taking a beating and still able to power his offense and his team to a win. We talked about at the beginning of this show. We're going to close it out with this. Keith, at the end of the day, for me, when I look at Shedeur Sanders, this is a professional quarterback. This is an NFL quarterback. If you look at what he's able to do in late game situations, he's cool, he's calm, he's collected. He's never too high, too low. Like, sometimes I feel like we need to check his pulse in them type of situations, because I'm just like, are you breathing? Like, are you alive in this moment? And the Colorado State game, what he said, like, I just thought, I went Brady mode, right? Because Brady's his mentor. And it's the same thing we would see from Tom Brady. Whether I got to go on a 12-play drive with 2 minutes left, dunking, and find that big play up the seam to Gronk, I'll do that. If I can get it down the field on a go route to Randy Moss or Dante Stallworth, I'll get that too. Whatever I got to do to lead my team down. So I wanted to give him, give a game ball to Shedeur Sanders. They don't win this game without him. They didn't have a run. Well, they don't have a run game. I'm not going to say they didn't have a run game. They don't have a run game. You know what I mean? They don't consistently run the ball or have an offensive line to consistently run the ball with. But Shedeur Sanders is the as they say, the straw that stirs that drink in Colorado. He's that guy. The play where right before the half, this was, I think, was one of the more deflating plays for Baylor. The left tackle gets beat. Shedeur has immense pocket presence, ducks underneath the sack, rolls out right, throws a rope to I think a freshman receiver who gets hit, stays up, doesn't go down, gets up and takes it the rest of the way. And it's like, that was a momentum shifting play because you could have went into the halftime down 2 scores. Instead, you went down just 1 touchdown instead of being down 14 points. So I got to give love to Shedeur Sanders real quick. You talked about it. Khalil Mullings, 17, 159. But it was the run that put them at the goal line, Keith. Like, he should have been stopped. He should have been tackled for like 12, a gain of 12. I don't know how he spun out of that with you got a whole grown adult wrapped around your legs, and he still spun and power out of that run. And then the speed afterward, I thought he was going to take it to the house. And I'm not going to lie, if I was USC's defense, I might have let him take it to the house. That way you would have saved time on the clock and not allowed, them to run the clock down and only have 30-something seconds left in the game. But Khalil Mullings, 17, 159, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's been a beast, and a small school kid, Keith, in a game that we did not see coming. I think the score was like 70-50 or something.
70-50. I thought that was college basketball. I thought North Carolina was playing James Madison in basketball.
They sat their starters because there's no way in the world North Carolina's basketball team loses like that. But Alonzo,
we thought the same thing about the football team, DP. We thought no way.
That's fair. That's a good point. Alonzo Barnett the third, 64%, 64.7 completion percentage. He had 388 yards passing, but he also had 99 yards rushing. He ran for 2 touchdowns, and he threw for 5. He combined for a total of 7 touchdowns. This was a situation where it was just like, yeah, I don't really know what happened for North Carolina. Like, what I mean? I have no idea how you allowed this young man to dominate the game the way he did. 7 touchdowns by one individual is insane. That's some stuff that you try. That's the stuff you try to do on College Football 25, Keith. You know what I mean? That's when you fire up the game. That's what you try to do with your quarterback or that receiver. Is like, yeah, I'm gonna get him the Heisman and pad stats. We up 50 in the 4th. Here's 3 more touchdowns for you. But this young man was outstanding in that game, Keith. So Shedeur Sanders, Khalil Mulling, and Alonzo Barnett III, my 3 game ball winners of the week.
DP, I feel like you inspired, and you may have started a franchise mode last night with James Madison. Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. Because you brought it up.
I haven't done it yet, but I might.
I feel like you inspired, man. But listen, mine is gonna be simple, right? Travis Hunter, right? I'm gonna go with the obvious guy. Listen, and it's this simple, DP. When Deion Sanders, right? And he put the little, instead of the team captains, he put L for leaders and D for dogs, right? And I believe Trav, I'm like, all right, why you just can't put the captains? Like, I get it, you want to put your mix on everything, but some stuff just leave well enough alone sometimes, right? Yeah. And then I think Travis Hunter has a D on his shirt, right? For dog. And for the first time yesterday, right? And Deion Sanders was there all last year, right? Few games this year. For the first time, I said, that makes sense. Travis Hunter is a dog, right? He's a straight up dog. I said, that is appropriate. You know what? I am with it, right? He's a dog. And that's the first thing you said. This guy, DP, we talk about the playing the wide receiver position, right? But to step up on a goal line, right? And to put your face mask on a football, cause a fumble when your defense is once again reeling, right? And you be the guy to make the play. Like, now, how does the rest of your team not show up down in and down out when the best player on the football field, 180-pound, maybe 175-pound corner, is sticking his face in there to stop a running back when they were at the 1-yard line? Most defenses give up anyway and say this guy's going to score, right? That guy is gritting it out, probably played close to 100 plays yesterday, and he's stepping up for a tackle on a goal line when most likely, DP, the truth is most likely he was probably going to get ran over and the running back was going to get in the end zone. But he took that 1% chance, and guess what? The ball came out, and he made the game-defining play. That is special right there, DP. And listen, I go back and forth, and I say you want to play wide receiver, right? But I'm not going to lie. Once he made that play, I second-guessed myself. I woke up this morning, I'm back on the wide receiver train, but I said, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, it makes you second guess yourself. So DP, that wraps up my game ball, giving it out to Travis Hunter.
No, I like that. And to your point, Keith, he played 144 snaps in this game.
Yeah, that's insane. What is that?
144 snaps. Like, I think it was at one point the commentary team said like that he had played every snap but one. And it was into the 4th quarter when they said this. And I was like, and I remember that he did the interview, and even in the interview, he had some knee bands on, like for stem treatment, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm constantly getting treatment. Yeah, I'm constantly in rehab. Like I'm constantly in treatment to keep my body going." And it's crazy though, Keith. They talked about it. They said the coach, I think Coach Dave Aranda, one of your guys from LSU, Coach Aranda said, we want to take shots in this game against this defense. And they did. They went down the field against Colorado secondary. You know who they didn't target? Travis Hunter. He did not log a target. And he played 58 snaps at corner, I believe. 58 snaps at corner and 58, 59. And they did not target him one time, Keith. So the dog label is 100% true. I just, at this point, and I know that they love to do this with quarterbacks, and true, the only quarterback I feel comfortable even being in that discussion right now is Cam Ward. They're undefeated. He's playing out of his mind, things like that. I don't know how you can't have Shedeur Sanders as the leading Heisman candidate right now, Keith. Matter of fact, that might be a discussion we need to have later on this week, talking about 2025 draft prospects who are like Heisman contenders. But I just don't see how he's not the front runner. This dude's doing everything. Like the Heisman's supposed to be like the MVP. Keith, he's the MVP of the Colorado Buffaloes right now. Offense, defense, like I'm glad they don't have him on special teams. I'm like, he don't need those snaps either. Like, you know what I mean? Don't have him returning kicks and stuff, man. But yeah, I'm glad you gave him the game ball. Like some people say that's low hanging fruit. Well, I don't care. Like it fits. And
it is Travis, what it is.
Travis Hunter's that dude.
I'm not one of those guys, DP, that tries to make things too complicated, right? When you watch a guy make a goal line stand and he's a cornerback and he tackles the running back fumbles the ball and your teams win, looks like a game ball candidate.
And he had over 130. He had 130 yards receiving too. So it was like,
yeah. So game ball candidate, right? But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I wanted to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Listen, man, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Keith, I feel like we haven't ranked the top 10 receivers in a couple of weeks. Wanted to let some things play out, stuff like that. There's going to be some guys that's falling off that list, some guys that's rising up that list. So I think we should get into that on tomorrow's show, Keith, and ranked our top 10 wide receivers post week 4 of college football. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.